It is July 19, 2015. Operatives of Nigeria's secret police, DSS, are driving into a luxurious neighborhood in the country's capital city of Abuja. Their target is the residence of this man, Sambo Dasuki. He was the national security advisor in the Goodluck Jonathan's administration that had just handed over power barely 51 days ago. These men are on a mission, one that is not immediately clear until they stormed into the building. The commanding officer demands for the international passport of the outgoing national security advisor. But the drama is far from over. For Dasuki, this seems like a nightmare. If only he knew he would be in this for the next 4 years. The ex-NSA is immediately charged with unlawful possession of firearms and foreign currencies. Not even the courts could help him get his passport back for a medical trip. 4 months later, Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari finally steps in, demanding the immediate arrest of the colonel for siphoning billions of dollars meant for arms procurement. But the president's order leaves Dasuki more confused than ever. He tried to protest his arrest, but there were records and people willing to testify against him. The months that followed would uncover one of the darkest stories of corruption in Nigeria's history. In one instance, a whopping sum of 2.2 billion naira was allegedly spent on prayers in Nigeria and Saudi Arabia to win the war against terrorism. However, while Nigerians waited for answers to those prayers, Boko Haram continued to terrorize the nation, killing thousands and rendering millions of people homeless. Investigations would later reveal how Dasuki allegedly invested millions of dollars said to be proceeds of this loot from the arms scandal into real estate properties in the United States. But how did he manage this feat? Who were his accomplices? And what has happened to his trial since that time? This is the story of Sambo Dasuki and the alleged $2.1 billion arms fraud. Now, let's pause here for a second. Do you know that every time you browse through the internet, there's a chance of someone trying to harvest your private information, like your passwords, messages, and personal data? This happens when you connect to public Wi-Fi or fail to use a secured connection like a VPN. And that's why I use private internet access, the world's most transparent and trusted VPN with over 30 million downloads. But what's a VPN? A virtual private network, or VPN for short, is an app that hides your IP address and safeguards your internet connection through an encrypted tunnel. With just a single tap, private internet access shields your digital life from the eyes of your internet service provider and even government censors. And it's not just about security now. Private internet access helps you access geo-restricted content. There's this show I love to watch a lot on Netflix. It's called Madam Secretary, but it's only available to US viewers. Now, with private internet access, I now simply connect to servers located in the United States, and just like that, I can watch all my favorite shows from anywhere in the world. What is so fascinating about private internet access is they do not record or store user data. It is also available for all platforms, be it Windows, macOS, Android, Linux, and even iOS. This means that with a single private internet access subscription, you get to protect an unlimited number of devices at the same time. Now, signing up for private internet access is risk-free to you. There is a 30-day money-back guarantee. And to activate this deal, you need to visit this website, piavpn.com/judebela, to get 83% off private internet access with 4 months free. Use the link in the description box to get this great deal. Now let's jump right back into our story. To get a full picture of this insane arms deal scandal that rocked Nigeria a few years ago, you need to understand why this deal was very important to the nation. To do that, we need to go back a few years. Shortly after the death of its founder, Mohammed Yusuf, Abubakar Shekau emerged as the new leader of Boko Haram. Under his command, the group turned into a full-fledged terrorist organization, launching a violent insurgency against the Nigerian government, targeting police stations, military bases, government offices, and churches. One of Boko Haram's major attacks under Shekau was the June 2011 bombing of the Nigerian police headquarters in Abuja, followed by the August 2011 bombing of the United Nations headquarters in Abuja, which killed at least 23 people and injured over 80 more. This marked the group's transition into one capable of large-scale terrorist operations. Between 2011 and 2012, Boko Haram intensified its attacks, committing massacres, suicide bombings, and targeted assassinations all across northern Nigeria. Its deadliest attack at the time came in January 2012. It was a series of coordinated bomb attacks targeting police stations and government offices in Kano, killing over 185 people. They followed this up with an attack on a school in Maiduguri in February 2012. By mid-2012, this group had transformed into one of the deadliest terrorist groups in the world, causing the death of thousands and displacing many more. By mid-2012, the president had seen enough. He wanted a radical change in the security architecture of the country, and so he fired the National Security Advisor, NSA, General Andrew Owoye Azazi, and the Minister of Defense, Haliru Bello, respectively. The man who would take the reins from here is the character of our story, Mr. Sambo Dasuki. But who is this guy?
There was a threat as far back as February this year issued by Sheikh Au, calling them infidels by name, by position, and saying that they were in trouble, they were going to see.
Born on December 2nd, 1954 in Wusasa, Zaria, Dasuki was the first son of Alhaji Ibrahim Dasuki, the 18th Sultan of Sokoto. Being from a royal family meant he had all the privileges a rich family could afford. He was educated at the Kaduna Capital School and Government College, Kaduna, after which he got enrolled into the Nigerian Defense Academy in 1972. By 1974, he had earned his commission, embarking on a military journey that would see him play key roles in Nigeria's history. First was the political crisis of the 1980s. Dasuki, who was then a major, played significant roles in two critical coups that defined Nigeria's political journey. In 1983, he aligned himself with the group that brought Major General Muhammadu Buhari to power. However, seeing the catastrophe that the regime brought on Nigerians, Dasuki soon had a change of heart, and in just 2 years, he was standing with the officers who facilitated General Ibrahim Babangida's takeover in 1985, leading to Buhari's arrest and removal from power. Following this event, Dasuki's loyalty was rewarded by the Babangida's regime when he was appointed the new aide-de-camp. However, the corridors of power are said to be fraught with rivalries. Dasuki's relationship with General Sani Abacha, the then Chief of Army Staff, became strained, prompting Dasuki to seek further military training in the United States in 1988. This is sort of an early retirement. This move was both a retreat and a strategic pause, allowing him to distance himself from domestic tensions that plagued the nation in the years that followed.
We must lay a very solid foundation for the growth of true democracy. The interim national government is hereby dissolved. The national and state assemblies are also dissolved. The National Electoral Commission is hereby dissolved.
Both presidential candidates were political prisoners under the late military dictator General Sani Abacha, whose sudden death last June set off the transition to civilian rule.
After the return to civilian rule in 1999, Dasuki would wait another 13 years to be recalled into service by President Goodluck Jonathan in June 2012 to help his nation in the fight against Boko Haram. And here was where his story began.
What we have learned is that there is not one particular path that leads to terrorism, rather there are many.
During his tenure, Dasuki advocated for a different approach to the Boko Haram question. The new strategy would be multifaceted. According to the NSA, the country needed to use other methods such as addressing the socio-economic issues that fueled the insurgency and not rely only on military action. He was instrumental in initiating dialogues aimed at de-radicalization and countering extremist narratives. But as he went on this campaign, the terrorist group responsible for all of this extremism in northern Nigeria had other ideas. They intensified their acts of terror, and their next one shook not just Nigeria, but the entire world. On a fateful night in 2014, while Dasuki and his fellow powerful men slept peacefully in their well-guarded homes, armed fighters of this dangerous Boko Haram group stormed an all-girls school. They kidnapped over 200 schoolgirls, all while facing little to no resistance from security operatives. The success of that operation turned Nigeria into a laughingstock in the eyes of the world. Soon enough, a campaign that would eventually lead to the removal of the incumbent president started. Here comes Operation Bring Back Our Girls.
Bring Back Our Girls has now been tweeted over 1 million times.
This campaign would turn to be an empty, actionless movement that did nothing more than throw mud on the credibility of the sitting president. In the eyes of the whole world, Goodluck Jonathan was incompetent. He had watched over 200 girls get kidnapped by a terror group that should have been defeated. So, what more could he offer? Beneath the facade, though, lies a truth more darker than many were willing to admit at the time. There was no political will to fight the terrorists, or the president was being sabotaged. As Goodluck Jonathan's time in office came to an end, one thing was certain: Dasuki had failed in his job. The Boko Haram threat remained, and the nation was no safer than when he took the job. But it was now the job of the next administration to figure out why. And when the administration of Muhammadu Buhari got around to getting those answers, they uncovered something shocking. One of his inaugural promises was to intensify the government's effort to fish out those responsible for the decade-long violence being perpetrated by Boko Haram. Muhammadu Buhari decided to start those efforts by looking into the military expenditure between 2007 and 2015. The president also ordered the investigation of 38 former military chiefs, officers, and companies. To carry out this task, he set up an arms procurement investigative committee. After months of auditing and going over government documents and transactions carried out by the previous administration of President Goodluck Jonathan, the committee discovered extra budgetary spending to the tune of 643.8 billion naira and spending of about $2.2 billion in the foreign currency component under the Goodluck Jonathan's administration. The committee analyzed how funds were transferred to the offices of the National Security Advisor and the Nigerian Armed Forces in local and foreign currencies. It observed that about $2.2 billion was disbursed for the procurement of ammunition to tackle insurgency, but according to reports, little was spent on buying arms and ammunition for the Nigerian military stuck in the front lines of this raging war. The committee also discovered that out of the 513 contracts awarded at about $8.3 billion, around 53 were failed contracts amounting to about $2.3 billion. The amount of foreign currency spent on failed contracts was more than twice the $1 billion loan approved by the National Assembly for borrowing from the World Bank to fight insurgencies. The investigative committee also discovered a total transfer of 3.85 billion naira allegedly made to a single company by Colonel Dasuki, the former National Security Advisor. Further investigations would reveal that funds were often withdrawn in cash from the Central Bank of Nigeria and delivered directly to Dasuki. For instance, Shaibu Salisu, a former director of finance at the Office of the National Security Advisor, confessed to withdrawing $47 million from the CBN and delivering it to Dasuki in 11 suitcases. Dasuki was responsible for overseeing the nation's security apparatus, which included the procurement of military equipment. However, this investigation suggested that funds allocated for arms purchases were diverted for personal enrichment and political purposes. But that was not all. There was more to this scandal. This would be uncovered some 9 years later in an investigation by a Paris-based anti-corruption group, the Platform to Protect Whistleblowers in Africa. On November 13, 2024, there was a report in the Washington Post detailing how Sambo Dasuki laundered money using his post as National Security Advisor. One of the recipients of the loot was alleged to be Dasuki's family friend, Robert Oshodin, a Nigerian furniture manufacturer based in the United States, and his wife Mimi. Over the 3 years of Mr. Dasuki's tenure, his office would make dozens of transfers of millions of dollars to the couple's bank accounts. According to bank documents, the payments were said to be for consulting services and special ops. In mid-2014, documents show the NSA's office wired the couple $12 million in a single transfer for, quote, the provision of counter-radicalization campaign, end of quote. Investigations would reveal that the couple had only $50,000 as their account balance when they received this $12 million from Mr. Dasuki's office. But who were these Oshodins? According to this investigation by the Washington Post, in collaboration with Premium Times, Oshodin is a Nigerian based in the United States. He learned carpentry in Nigeria before founding a company called Bob Oshodin Organization Limited. Oshodin and Dasuki, who both lived in the United States for a long period of time, became close friends after meeting decades ago. The families were close enough that the Oshodins agreed to look after two of Dasuki's children who were teenagers at the time and attending school in the United States, while Dasuki served as Nigeria's national security advisor. It was also during this time that Dasuki allegedly transferred tens of millions of dollars worth of Nigerian and US currency from state funds to the Oshodin's furniture company. According to this investigation, bank records collected by EFCC investigators show that in June 2014, days after receiving $12 million from Dasuki's office as payment for counter-radicalization campaign, the furniture company transferred $7.7 million of it to a bank in California. The money was allegedly used for the purchase of a $9.5 million mansion in Los Angeles. The mansion, which sits in the Windsor Square neighborhood near Beverly Hills, is listed among LA's historic cultural monuments. Built in 1913 in a French neoclassical style, it was home during the 1950s, 60s and 70s to Norman and Dorothy Chandler, the influential owners of the Los Angeles Times. This mansion is said to have played host to presidents including Eisenhower, Kennedy, Johnson and Nixon. About a year after the Oshodins bought the LA mansion through a shell company, they got burgled. According to a report made to their insurance company, the thieves had broken into it when the Oshodins were in Africa. But Dasuki's college-age son and a friend were reported to be there at the time. The robbers allegedly rolled two heavy safes from the Oshodin's closet and out the door. Oshodin reported the incident to the insurance company. He claimed that the safes contained $58 million worth of jewelry, including a $2.6 million watch and a $950,000 ring, an 18-karat gold Vertu phone, and 10 or more diamond bracelets. An expert witness retained by Oshodin's lawyer put the total value closer to $15 million. But the insurance company was not pleased with this valuation, saying it was not informed of the jewelry when Oshodin bought the policy. Now, this is going to be relevant to our story shortly. When the insurance company offered $5,000 as compensation to cover the loss to the Oshodins, they were angry and they sued. In response, the insurance company's lawyers argued that because stolen money had paid for the home, the company had no obligation to cover the loss. Yeah, according to a 2020 court filing, an insurance company lawyer said the Oshodins did not have, quote, an insurable interest in the home because they did not have lawful ownership of the house, having purchased it with illicit funds obtained from the Nigerian government, to which they were not entitled. Wow. The company's lawyers filed the case record in Los Angeles Superior Court with reams of bank records and other evidence of the fund's origin. The court records include an email obtained by the insurance company's lawyers sent by a Nigerian law enforcement official to the US Justice Department in 2018. The email called Robert Oshodin, quote, a suspect who was still at large, and added, quote, "It is our humble request you track the money with a view to blocking it, please." The sender of this mail was an EFCC official named Isiaku Sharu. The said email was received by Mary Butler, chief of the international unit of the US Justice Department's Money Laundering and Asset Recovery section. A bank log shows that Oshodine's furniture company, soon after receiving the $12 million counter-radicalization campaign payment from the Nigerian government, transferred $2 million of that money to an account maintained by a Virginia-based title company involved in Oshodine's purchase of the mansion off Old Dominion Drive. In a 2018 affidavit filed by Nigerian authorities seeking to seize the Oshodine's properties, a Nigerian law enforcement officer alleged that both the mansions in LA and the one off Old Dominion Drive were bought with money misappropriated by Dasuki, in return for which Oshodine's furniture company provided nothing. Mimi Oshodine was later arraigned in a Nigerian court on money laundering charges. She and the furniture company were accused of receiving more than $57 million in national security funds diverted by Mr. Dasuki, but she pleaded not guilty. When she was first approached by Nigerian law enforcement in 2016, she reportedly told investigators that the furniture company had agreed to sell its assets to the Nigerian government for $55 million several years earlier. This is according to a handwritten statement she gave to the investigators. One of the company's directors swore in a 2018 affidavit that a Nigerian government program had obtained the furniture company's manufacturing plant as a place to conduct, quote, de-radicalization and vocational training for former militant youths. But this statement was disputed by officials who called it a false sales agreement used in a premeditated scheme to launder money. There was no record of an actual sale of the factory. But after all this drama, Mimi Oshodine was released by a court on bail 2 months after her 2019 arrest. In all, investigators alleged Mr. Dasuki and the couple conspired to embezzle the equivalent of over 100 billion naira from government coffers, all while Boko Haram was terrorizing Nigerians. It is not clear whether or not any of the money has been recovered from the Oshodine couple. But there are more people involved in this scandal. This is Atahiru Bafrawa, a high-profile politician mentioned in connection with the scandal. The former governor of Sokoto State was said to have received 4.6 million naira from the office of the National Security Advisor. Then we have Ambassador Bashir Yuguda, a former Minister of State for Finance, who was said to have received 1.5 billion naira from the office of the National Security Advisor. Premium Times reported that the funds were directly transferred to him from the NSA office, but he was unable to explain why. I mean, maybe this is a case of miracle money. The transfers were made to his account between December 2014 and May 2015. There were other names such as Aminu Babakusa, Acacia Holdings Limited, and Reliance Referral Hospital Limited. The EFCC charged them with 32 counts bordering on misappropriation, criminal breach of trust, dishonest release, and receiving various sums of money. But the prosecution didn't go without its own controversies. Throughout the period from 2016 to 2018, Sambo Dasuki remained in detention despite multiple court orders granting him bail. The government's refusal to release him became a contentious issue, with debates surrounding the rule of law and human rights. Some called it a politically motivated witch hunt, which it appears to be from all indications. On July 2, 2018, the ECOWAS Court of Justice ordered the Nigerian government to release Dasuki unconditionally, stating that his continued detention was unlawful and arbitrary. Despite this ruling, the government did not comply. After spending over 4 years in detention, Dasuki was finally released by the DSS on December 24, 2019. Following his release, Dasuki's legal battles continued with various court appearances and ongoing discussions about the allegations against him. But some of the names mentioned in connection to this arms scandal have since regained their freedom. Some were even fully acquitted. The big question that remains though is, has the $2.1 billion been recovered? Where is it now? I guess we'll never know.